Maya was 12 years old when she found the strange key in her grandmother's attic, and her life would never be the same again. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon, and Maya was bored out of her mind. So she decided to explore the dusty old attic that her grandmother had always told her to stay away from. But curiosity was stronger than any warning her grandmother could give her. The attic smelled like old books and forgotten memories, and dust floated in the air like tiny dancers caught in the weak light coming through the small window at the far end of the room. And Maya felt like she had stepped into another world entirely. She moved carefully between old boxes and broken furniture, looking at photographs of people she did not recognize and touching fabrics that crumbled under her fingers like ancient secrets refusing to be disturbed. In the corner of the attic, hidden behind a tower of boxes filled with Christmas decorations that nobody had used in years, Maya found an old wooden chest that seemed different from everything else in the room. And when she touched it, she felt a strange warmth spreading through her fingers. The chest was covered in carvings that looked like symbols from a language Maya had never seen before, and she traced them with her finger, wondering what they could possibly mean and who had put them there so long ago. She tried to open the chest, but it was locked tight, and no matter how hard she pulled or pushed, the lid would not budge even a little bit. And Maya was about to give up when she noticed something shining underneath a pile of old newspapers nearby. It was a key, but not just any ordinary key that you would use to open a regular door or a simple lock. No, this key was made of a metal that seemed to change color depending on how the light hit it, shifting from gold to silver to a deep blue that reminded Maya of the ocean at midnight. Her heart was beating fast as she picked up the key and held it in her hand, feeling its strange weight and noticing that it was warm to the touch, even though the attic was cold and the rain outside made everything feel damp and chilly. Maya knew without anyone telling her that this key belonged to the mysterious chest, and with trembling hands, she inserted it into the lock and turned it slowly, hearing a click that seemed to echo through the entire attic like a secret finally being revealed after 100 years of waiting. The lid of the chest opened smoothly and silently, and inside Maya found something she could never have expected to find in her grandmother's dusty old attic. Something that would change everything she thought she knew about her family and about the world itself. There was a map, old and yellowed with age, but still perfectly readable, showing places that Maya did not recognize but somehow felt familiar to her. As if she had seen them in dreams, she could not quite remember when she woke up. Beside the map was a leather journal filled with handwriting that was small and neat. And as Maya flipped through the pages, she realized that it was written by her great-great-grandmother, a woman named Elena who Maya had never heard anyone in her family talk about before. The journal spoke of impossible things, of hidden doors that led to other worlds, of magical creatures that lived just beyond the edge of ordinary sight, and of a secret that had been passed down through the women in Maya's family for generations. Maya's hands were shaking as she read the words that Elena had written so many years ago, words that seemed to be speaking directly to her across time and space. If you are reading this, then you have found the key and you are ready to learn the truth about who you are and where you come from, the journal said. And Maya felt tears forming in her eyes, even though she did not understand why she was so emotional. According to the journal, there was a hidden door somewhere in the house, a door that could only be seen by those who carried the family gift. And this door led to a place called the Between, a world that existed in the spaces between all other worlds. Maya could not believe what she was reading, but at the same time, something deep inside her knew that every word was true. And she felt a pull in her chest like a compass needle pointing toward something she had been searching for her whole life without knowing it. She put the journal and the map in her backpack and carefully closed the chest, leaving everything else exactly as she had found it, so that her grandmother would not know she had been up there snooping around in places she was not supposed to be. As she climbed down from the attic, Maya's mind was racing with questions that had no easy answers. And she wondered if her grandmother knew about the journal and the key and the hidden door. Or if this secret had been lost and forgotten until Maya stumbled upon it by accident. She decided that she would not say anything to anyone until she had a chance to read the entire journal and study the map and figure out what all of this meant. Because she had a feeling that this was her secret to discover and her adventure to take. That night, Maya stayed up late with a flashlight under her covers, reading page after page of Elena's journal and learning about a world she never knew existed. A world of magic and wonder and danger that was calling out to her like a song only she could hear. The journal explained that the hidden door appeared differently to everyone who could see it, and that Maya would have to search the house with her heart open and her eyes really seeing. Not just looking, but truly seeing the way children see before they learn to ignore the impossible. Maya fell asleep with the journal clutched to her chest and dreams of strange landscapes and glowing pathways filling her mind. And when she woke up the next morning, she knew exactly what she had to do. She was going to find the hidden door, and she was going to discover the truth about her family and about herself, no matter what dangers might be waiting for her on the other side. The adventure was just beginning, and Maya was ready to face whatever came next with courage and curiosity and the burning desire to know the secrets that had been hidden from her for so long. Maya spent the entire next week searching every corner of her grandmother's old house, looking for the hidden door that Elena's journal had promised she would find, if only she looked with her heart instead of just her eyes. She checked behind paintings and inside closets. She tapped on walls, listening for hollow spaces. She examined the floors for loose boards. And she even went into the basement where spiders made their homes in the shadows. But she found nothing unusual at all. By Friday evening, Maya was starting to feel discouraged and wondered if maybe the journal had been nothing but the imaginings of a lonely woman who lived a long time ago. But something inside her refused to give up hope. Her grandmother noticed that Maya had been acting strangely all week, wandering around the house and staring at walls with a faraway look in her eyes. And during dinner, she finally asked Maya what was going on in that busy little mind of hers. Maya almost told her grandmother everything, but at the last moment she stopped herself and said she was just exploring the house because she was bored. And her grandmother smiled and said that was perfectly fine because old houses, like this one, held many surprises for those who took the time to look. That night, Maya read the journal again from the very beginning, paying close attention to every word and looking for clues she might have missed the first time. And that was when she noticed something she had overlooked before. Elena had written that the door would only appear at a certain time, when the moonlight came through the window in the upstairs hallway and touched the wall where the old family portrait hung. And Maya realized she had been searching at the wrong times all along. She could barely contain her excitement as she waited for the moon to rise. And when her grandmother finally went to bed, Maya crept out of her room and made her way to the upstairs hallway where the portrait of her ancestors stared down at her with knowing eyes. The moon was bright and full that night, and as Maya watched with bated breath, the silver light began to creep across the floor and up the wall, moving slowly toward the portrait like a spotlight searching for its target. And then something magical happened, something that made Maya gasp out loud and cover her mouth with her hands to keep from screaming with joy and fear and wonder all mixed together. Where the moonlight touched the wall beside the portrait, the wallpaper began to shimmer and shift, and Maya could see the outline of a door appearing as if it had been there all along, just waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The door was beautiful in a way that nothing Maya had ever seen before was beautiful, with carvings that seemed to move and dance in the moonlight and a handle that glowed with a soft, golden light that made Maya's heart beat faster. She reached out her hand slowly, half expecting the door to disappear the moment she touched it. but instead the handle felt solid and real and warm under her fingers. And she knew that this was the moment she had been waiting for her entire life. Maya took a deep breath and turned the handle, and the door swung open without making a sound. And before her was a pathway made of what looked like starlight, stretching out into a darkness that was somehow not frightening but inviting and full of promise. She stepped through the door without hesitation, and the moment her foot touched the starlight pathway, she felt a rush of energy flowing through her body, making her feel more alive and awake than she had ever felt before. The pathway carried her forward through the darkness, and all around her Maya could see glimpses of other worlds spinning past like pages in a book being flipped too fast to read. And she wondered how many worlds existed in this space between spaces. After what felt like both an instant and an eternity, Maya found herself standing in a place that was unlike anything she had ever imagined. A vast meadow filled with flowers that glowed in colors she had no names for, and trees that seemed to hum with music only they could hear. The sky above was filled with 3 moons of different sizes and colors, and the stars were so bright and close that Maya felt like she could reach up and touch them if she only stretched her arm high enough. She was in the between, the world that existed in the spaces between all other worlds, and it was more beautiful and more strange than anything Elena's journal had described. A voice spoke from behind her, and Maya spun around to see a boy about her own age standing there with a surprised look on his face. And he said that he could not believe another traveler had finally come through the door after so many years of waiting. The boy's name was Finn, and he explained that he was a guardian of the Between, one of many who had lived here for generations, protecting the pathways that connected all the different worlds together. He told Maya that her family had been travelers for as long as anyone could remember, people who had the gift of seeing the hidden doors and walking the pathways between worlds, and that this gift had been passed down from mother to daughter for centuries. Maya asked Finn why no one had come through the door in so long, and his face grew sad as he explained that something had happened many years ago, something that caused the travelers to stop coming and the pathways to grow dark and dangerous. He said that the Between was in trouble, that shadows had been creeping in from the edges of the world and threatening to consume everything, and that without the travelers to help maintain the balance, the entire Between might be lost forever. Maya felt a heavy weight settling on her shoulders as she realized that finding the door had not been an accident, that she had been meant to come here, that she had a purpose and a destiny that was bigger than anything she had ever dreamed. Finn took her hand and said he would show her the wonders of the Between, and together they began to walk across the glowing meadow toward a city that Maya could see shimmering in the distance, like a jewel made of light and hope. As they walked, Finn told Maya stories about her ancestors, about the brave travelers who had protected the pathways and helped keep all the worlds in balance. And Maya listened with growing wonder and growing fear. She had found the hidden door and she had entered the Between, but she was starting to understand that this was only the beginning of her journey, and that the challenges ahead would test everything she was and everything she could become. But for now, she was content to walk beside her new friend through this magical world, taking in all its beauty and mystery, and preparing herself for whatever adventures awaited her in the days to come. The Between had been waiting for her, and now that she was here, everything was about to change. The city of light that Maya had seen from the meadow was called Luminous, and when she and Finn finally reached its gates, she understood why it had that name. Every building in Luminous seemed to be made of crystal that captured and reflected light in 1,000 different ways, sending rainbows dancing through the streets and making the whole city look like it was alive with color and movement. People of all shapes and sizes walked through the streets, and Maya saw beings that looked almost human but with wings like butterflies, and others that seemed to be made entirely of flowing water, and some that looked like walking trees with kind eyes and gentle smiles. Finn explained that the Between was a gathering place for creatures from many different worlds, and that here in Luminos they all lived together in peace and harmony, working together to protect the pathways that connected their homes. Maya was amazed by everything she saw, and she wished she could spend forever exploring this incredible city and meeting all the wonderful beings who lived here. But Finn said they needed to hurry because someone very important was waiting to meet her. He led her through winding streets and across bridges made of solidified moonlight until they reached a tower in the very center of the city. A tower that stretched so high into the sky that Maya could not see where it ended. Inside the tower, they climbed a spiral staircase for what felt like hours, passing rooms filled with books and maps and strange instruments that Maya could not identify, until finally they reached a door at the very top. Finn knocked 3 times, and a voice from inside told them to enter. And when Maya stepped through the door, she found herself in a circular room with windows that looked out in every direction, showing views of the Between that took her breath away. Sitting in a chair by one of the windows was an old woman with silver hair that floated around her head like a cloud. And when she turned to look at Maya, her eyes were filled with tears of joy and recognition. The old woman said that her name was Seraphina, and that she had been the last traveler to walk the pathways before Maya, and that she had been waiting and hoping for so many years that a new traveler would finally come. Maya asked Seraphina why the travelers had stopped coming, and the old woman's face grew dark with painful memories as she began to tell a story that Maya needed to hear. Many years ago, there had been a great battle between the travelers and a being called the Shadow King, a creature of pure darkness who wanted to destroy the Between and cut off all the worlds from each other forever. The travelers had managed to defeat the Shadow King, but at a terrible cost, for many of them had been lost in the battle, and those who survived had been so frightened that they had hidden the keys and forgotten how to find the hidden doors. Seraphina herself had been just a young girl during the battle, and she had escaped to the Between where she had stayed ever since, too afraid to return to the ordinary world and too lonely to ever forget the friends she had lost. But now the Shadow King was returning, his dark power growing stronger every day as he gathered his strength in the forgotten corners of the Between. And without travelers to fight against him, there was no one who could stop him from achieving his terrible goal. Maya felt fear rising in her chest, and she wanted to turn and run back through the hidden door to the safety of her grandmother's house. But she knew in her heart that running away was not an option. Seraphina saw the fear in Maya's eyes, and she took the young girl's hands in her own, telling her that being afraid was normal and right, but that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite being afraid. She told Maya that she had the power to defeat the Shadow King, that the gift running through her blood was stronger than any that had come before, and that she was the Between's last and best hope for survival. Maya asked how she could possibly fight something as powerful as the Shadow King when she did not even know how to use her traveler abilities. And Seraphina smiled and said that was exactly why training would begin first thing in the morning. For the next several days, Maya trained harder than she had ever trained for anything in her life, learning to use the strange and wonderful powers that had been sleeping inside her all along. She learned how to see the pathways that connected the worlds, glowing threads of light that wove through the darkness like a spider's web made of starshine, and she learned how to walk them without getting lost in the spaces between. She learned how to call upon the light that lived in her heart and use it as a weapon against the shadows. And she practiced until she could create balls of brilliance in her palms and send them shooting through the air. Finn was always by her side, encouraging her when she felt like giving up and celebrating with her when she mastered a new skill. And Maya was grateful to have such a loyal friend in this strange new world. But even as she grew stronger, Maya could feel the Shadow King's presence growing closer, a cold darkness at the edge of her awareness that made her shiver whenever she let her guard down. She knew that the battle was coming soon, that all her training would be put to the test, and that the fate of the Between and all the worlds it connected rested on her young shoulders. At night she would sometimes sneak up to the top of the tower and look out at the beautiful city of Luminous, wondering if she would be strong enough to protect it and all the wonderful beings who called it home. She missed her grandmother, and she missed her ordinary life. But she also knew that she had been born for this purpose, that everything in her life had been leading her to this moment, and that she could not turn away from her destiny. The Shadow King was coming, and Maya would be ready to face him, no matter what it took and no matter what she had to sacrifice. She was a traveler, the last hope of the Between, and she would not let her ancestors down. The day Maya had been dreading finally arrived when scouts returned to Lumens with terrible news that made everyone in the city tremble with fear. The Shadow King had gathered an army of dark creatures at the edge of the Between, beings made of nightmare and hatred that were preparing to march on Luminous and destroy everything in their path. Seraphina called an emergency meeting in the great hall of the tower, and Maya stood beside her as guardians and citizens from all across the Between came to hear what the old traveler had to say. Seraphina spoke with a strong voice that carried to every corner of the hall, telling everyone that the time had come to stand and fight for their home, and that they would not let the Shadow King take from them everything they had built. Maya was surprised when Seraphina announced that she would lead the defense of Luminous, not as a general giving orders from the back, but as a warrior fighting alongside her people on the front lines. But first there was something Maya needed to do, something that only a traveler could accomplish, and Seraphina pulled her aside to explain the plan that she hoped would give them a chance to win. Hidden in the deepest part of the Between, there was an ancient artifact called the Star Heart, a crystal of pure light that had been created by the very first travelers and had the power to banish darkness forever. The Star Heart had been lost during the battle against the Shadow King all those years ago, and no one knew exactly where it was, but Seraphina believed that Maya's connection to her ancestors would help her find it. Maya felt her stomach twist with nervousness as she realized that she would have to leave Lumos and venture into the dangerous unknown parts of the Between while her friends stayed behind to fight the Shadow King's army. Finn immediately said that he was going with her, and no matter how much Maya protested, he refused to let her face the dangers alone, and secretly she was relieved to know that her friend would be by her side. Before they left, Seraphina gave Maya a pendant that had belonged to Elena, a beautiful silver chain with a crystal that glowed with a soft inner light, and she said it would help guide Maya when she felt lost. Maya and Finn slipped out of Luminous through a secret pathway just as the sun was setting, and behind them they could already hear the sounds of the Shadow King's army approaching the city walls. The part of the Between they traveled through was nothing like the beautiful meadows and crystal cities Maya had seen before, but was instead a wild and twisted landscape of shadows and strange shapes that seemed to reach for them as they passed. Maya kept her hand on the pendant and let it guide her steps, feeling a gentle pull that led them deeper and deeper into the darkness where no light from the 3 moons could reach. They walked for hours through treacherous terrain, crossing ravines on bridges that appeared only when they needed them and hiding from creatures that prowled the shadows looking for prey. Finn kept Maya's spirits up with stories and jokes, and she was so grateful for his friendship that she promised herself she would find a way to repay him once this was all over. Finally, they reached a place where the darkness was so complete that Maya could not see her own hand in front of her face, and she felt fear threatening to overwhelm her as she wondered if they had gone too far. But then the pendant around her neck began to glow brighter than it ever had before, and the light pushed back the darkness to reveal a cave entrance that seemed to be calling out to Maya. Inside the cave, they found a chamber that had clearly been untouched for many, many years, and in the center of the chamber on a pedestal of stone sat a crystal that pulsed with the light of 1,000 stars. The star heart was even more beautiful than Maya had imagined, and when she reached out to touch it, she felt a connection to every traveler who had ever lived, their strength and wisdom flowing into her like a river of light. She carefully picked up the star heart and held it close to her chest, feeling its warmth spreading through her body and filling her with a courage she had never known before. But their moment of triumph was cut short when a cold voice echoed through the cave, and Maya turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows that made her blood run cold with terror. The Shadow King himself stood before them, a being of pure darkness with eyes that burned like dying stars, and he said that he had been waiting for a traveler to come and find the star heart for him. Maya realized with horror that they had walked into a trap, that the Shadow King had known someone would come looking for the ancient artifact and had been patient enough to wait all this time. Finn stepped in front of Maya, ready to defend her with his life, but the Shadow King just laughed a terrible laugh that seemed to suck all the hope out of the air. He said that he had no interest in fighting them here in this forgotten cave, that he would much rather take the star heart back to Luminos and use its power to destroy the city and everyone in it. With a wave of his hand, the Shadow King sent a blast of darkness that knocked Finn unconscious and sent Maya flying against the wall of the cave. And before she could recover, he had snatched the star heart from her hands. Maya screamed in anger and despair as she watched the Shadow King disappear into the darkness with the only weapon that could have defeated him, and she crawled over to Finn to make sure he was still alive. He was breathing but would not wake up, and Maya knew she had to get him back to Luminos as quickly as possible, even though she had failed in her mission and now had no idea how they could possibly win. She carried Finn on her back through the twisted landscape, following the pathway that led back to the city, and as she walked, she made a promise to herself that she would find a way to make things right. The Shadow King might have the star heart, but Maya was not giving up, not when so many people were counting on her, not when the fate of every world hung in the balance. She would find a way to defeat the Shadow King, even if it cost her everything she had. Maya reached Luminos just as the battle was reaching its peak, and what she saw made her heart sink with despair and grief. The beautiful crystal buildings were crumbling under the assault of the Shadow Army, and brave guardians were fighting desperately against creatures of darkness that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. She found a safe place to leave Finn where healers could tend to him, and then she ran through the chaos of battle searching for Seraphina, needing to tell her what had happened and begging for guidance on what to do next. She found the old traveler standing on the steps of the great tower, holding back a wave of shadow creatures with blasts of pure light that shot from her hands. And even in the midst of battle, Seraphina still looked strong and determined. Maya told her everything that had happened in the cave, about finding the star heart and then losing it to the Shadow King. And she expected Seraphina to be angry or disappointed, but instead, the old woman just smiled. Seraphina said that the Shadow King had made a terrible mistake, that he was so focused on obtaining the star heart, that he had forgotten the most important truth about the power of the travelers. The real power did not come from any crystal or artifact, she explained, but from the connection between the travelers and the light that lived in all living things, a light that could never be stolen or corrupted by darkness. Maya did not understand what Seraphina meant, but before she could ask any questions, a terrible roar echoed across the battlefield, and the Shadow King himself appeared above the city, holding the star heart high above his head. He declared that the time had come to end this battle once and for all, that he would use the star heart to extinguish every light in the between and plunge all the worlds into eternal darkness. But as he tried to activate the crystal, something strange happened that made the Shadow King scream in rage and confusion. The star heart would not respond to his commands, would not release its power for him, and instead, it began to glow even brighter, as if it was fighting against his dark touch. Seraphina laughed and shouted up to the Shadow King that he could never control the star heart because it was created by love and hope and courage, things that he could never understand or possess. Maya felt something awakening inside her, a warmth spreading from her heart through her entire body, and she realized that she could feel the star heart calling out to her even from so far away. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, connecting to the crystal and to all the travelers who had come before her, and she felt their spirits joining with hers in a bond that was stronger than any darkness. The pendant around her neck began to glow with the same light as the star heart, and Maya understood what she needed to do, understood the truth that Seraphina had been trying to teach her all along. She rose into the air, lifted by the light that was pouring out of her and the pendant and the star heart, and she flew up to face the Shadow King with no fear in her heart. The Shadow King tried to attack her with bolts of darkness, but they dissolved before they could reach her, pushed away by the light that surrounded her like a protective shield. Maya reached out her hand, and the star heart flew from the Shadow King's grasp to her own. And the moment she touched it, she felt complete in a way she had never felt before. She was connected to everything and everyone, to the citizens of Luminos fighting below and to her grandmother sleeping peacefully back in the ordinary world, to Finn, who was just now waking up, and to Seraphina, who was watching with tears of pride in her eyes. The Shadow King screamed that this was impossible, that a child could not defeat him, that he had lived for thousands of years and would not be destroyed by a girl who had only just discovered her powers. But Maya knew that age and experience did not matter when you had love and hope and the courage to stand up for what was right. And she held the star heart above her head and released all the light that was inside her. A wave of brilliance swept across the between, touching every shadow and every dark creature and transforming them into particles of light that drifted up into the sky like a million fireflies. The Shadow King tried to flee, but he could not escape the light that was everywhere at once, and Maya watched as his dark form began to dissolve and scatter until there was nothing left but an echo of his final scream. The battle was over, and the between was saved, and Maya floated back down to the ground where Finn and Seraphina were waiting for her with smiles on their faces and joy in their hearts. The citizens of Luminos gathered around her, cheering and celebrating, and creatures of all shapes and sizes thanked her for saving their home and their lives. But Maya knew that she could not stay in the between forever, that she had a life back in the ordinary world and a grandmother who must be wondering where she had gone. Seraphina told her that time moved differently in the between, that even though Maya had been here for days, only a few hours had passed in her grandmother's house, and that she could always return whenever she wanted. Finn hugged her tightly and made her promise that she would come back soon, and Maya promised with all her heart that she would, that this was now her second home, and these were now her family. She walked back along the starlight pathway and through the hidden door, finding herself once again in the hallway of her grandmother's house with the moonlight fading from the wall. Maya smiled as she looked at the ordinary world around her, knowing that it was not so ordinary after all, knowing that magic and wonder existed just beyond the edge of sight for those who knew how to look. She went to check on her grandmother and found her sleeping peacefully, and Maya kissed her forehead gently before going to her own room. As she lay in bed, she touched the pendant that still hung around her neck, feeling its warmth and its connection to the between and to all the friends she had made there. She was a traveler, the protector of the pathways between worlds, and she knew that many more adventures were waiting for her just beyond the hidden door. But for now, she was happy to rest and dream of glowing meadows and crystal cities and a boy named Finn who would always be her friend. The end was really just another beginning, and Maya could not wait to see what would happen next.